All right, here we go. Hey, everybody. Happy day number 3. Can't believe it's day 3 already. It's Wednesday. The time flies when you're having fun, as so they say. Um, so first and foremost, welcome to day number 3. Super, super excited to obviously teach all you guys the next layer of what we're going to be doing, obviously, which is messaging. And I think that's the good thing is that so many people were posting in the Facebook group about, oh my God, I have new connections. What do I do now? Well, that's exactly what you want to happen, I think. And that's also the simplicity of LinkedIn in the sense of how open people are to accepting a connection and then obviously then sending them a message. Now, before we jump into today, there's just a couple other pieces of housekeeping as I always like to do. Let's obviously set our intention for today. And as we did in day 1 and day 2, let's hop into the comments and let's state one thing that we are grateful for today. For me personally, I am grateful that Nancy and I, because we are fully recovered from COVID, we will be able to go see our son in his graduation from 5th grade, officially entering middle school, which is just wild. So I am super, super grateful for that. We made sure that we were, double negative yesterday and today, and we are just so excited to see him, make that transition from elementary school to middle school, which is just wild. Time really does fly. Um, awesome. Good to see all the gratitude, obviously, in the comments. And again, just those other reminders, the replays will be available to you all to watch back until Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I always advise people go back through, watch it back, take more notes, just to make sure that if there's anything that you missed, obviously you can go back and watch that. Again, I also want to remind people, first, nearly 10 of you already grabbed a spot on my calendar to talk about the fast track as far as getting extra support from me. And again, I'm going to highly advise anyone that feels they are chomping at the bit, not only to put the pieces of the puzzle of what they did today, but they feel like that, having some extra support, whether it's hand holding or additional resources of what they can do to take their business to the next level, going deeper on LinkedIn. I've opened up my calendar the rest of this week, and I highly encourage anyone that is still feeling overwhelmed or wants to remain in their zone of genius, so to speak, is, just grab a time on my calendar. I'm happy to chat and tell you about the 2 different paths that you can go down with me, which I will be going into more greater detail tomorrow. Now, what I will want to share with you again really quickly is for those people that are in the earlier stages of their business, and even just, maybe even pre-launch, like you're just putting the pieces together. I just want to acknowledge all of those people that maybe are on here live or on the replay that I can just completely resonate how overwhelming it can be when you are starting that process. When you're building something from the ground up, there's a ton of stuff out there. I think if we go down the scroll holes on Google or on social media, it can get overwhelming. And if you guys resonate with that, just drop a Y or a yes in the chat, just so I know, because I know I'm not alone. I've been there. Um, and the fact is that, for those that still may be feeling that way, that's why I created these 2 fast track ways of getting yourself organized and non-overwhelmed and having a system in place to plug into. So again, I just want to acknowledge those people and, the others that are more, I would say, established business owners. Maybe you've been in business for a few years. Maybe you're adding additional things to maybe some of your offers. Um, and you don't want to be taken away from your zone of genius. You don't want distractions. You don't want the shiny object syndrome. I totally resonate with those people too. And, that's where more of a hands-on custom approach, really may, come in more benefit to those types of people. So again, just know that the idea of today and all this week is to really start shining a light on, what's possible with LinkedIn and what you can do with it. But just know there's always a next step. The people that are like, okay, it would be great to have a system. It would also be great to have some, hands-on, help from Scott himself and, helping me refine my profile and my messaging and who I should connect with and content. And just know there are those options, waiting for all of you. I also wanted to share with you, I always like sharing stories about, where someone was to where they are now. And this was about a year and a half ago. I end up working with a lot of service providers. So realtors, insurance brokers, financial professionals, coaches, consultants, authors and speakers, podcasters, or anyone that has something of value to offer. And when I was initially working with this client, obviously they were a complete novice to LinkedIn. They didn't really know how to do anything. And that's where a lot of people are. They're familiar with LinkedIn, but they're just not, what do you mean SEO my profile? What do you mean, sending different types of messages and, how many days should I be posting? All those things. So as we started to get into the guts, where I got my hands on their business and I gave them some more of a custom approach of what they specifically need to be doing, it came to fruition actually with the farmer's mentality. If you guys remember my whole farmer analogy, just drop a Y or a yes in the chat box. Remember, a lot of this approach is planting seeds to reap the harvest later. I think that's the whole thing. Gary Vaynerchuk actually talks about this. He says our net worth is in direct correlation to our network. So it's really important to build that thriving network so we can create that net worth. So this individual in particular, 6 months, after we put all of the processes in place and, obviously he was having small wins along the way. As I mentioned yesterday, within about 3 to 4 weeks, people can really start to see the revenue start churning in from what I do with them. But this story was pretty remarkable because about 3 months in, if anyone has ever heard the term, he hit the whale. So, the whale in business, right? That's like the Moby Dick, catching the white whale where it's like, oh my God, like it happened. Well, it happened for this person, about 12 weeks after we kind of put the pieces in place together. And it was a multiple 6-figure contract. And it was the largest one in his company's history. And, he started to just overwhelmingly thank me. And I'm like, it's not me. I obviously I got in there and showed you what you need to be doing, but you're the one that took the action. And I think that's the big, I think, lesson from that story is the more that we commit to taking action each and every day, going back to something that I stated, earlier. Remember, it's that marathon approach, right? The tortoise and the hare. It's not about how you start the race. It's about how you finish. And I think that's the big thing that I really want to get through to each and every one of you is that consistency is key. People always ask myself and Nancy, how do you guys continue to grow and scale your businesses year in, year out? Well, it's because we have that approach where we value that online Rolodex of connections and networks that we've built. And I'm going to share a personal win with you guys today, which I never do. So literally just this morning, I got a referral introduction from a client of mine on LinkedIn, and they referred me to this individual who's in the like New York City, Manhattan area. And they have some high profile networking groups and connections at NYU and University of Massachusetts, plus 2 groups. And they said, we're looking to bring on a keynote speaker for events for this year and next year. And you fit the bill. And I want to give you as many opportunities as possible. Whatever your fees are, we want to pay them. And again, we want to get you in front of as many people as possible. And that happened this morning. And so when we talk about, what I love sharing, thank you guys. What I love sharing with all of you is I'm very different from, I would say, other coaches and consultants out there. I think when a lot of people get to a certain point in their business where they're quote unquote, they've made it, they've created significant wealth. And, I'm grateful for everything that Nancy and I have and continue to create. I think the bigger thing is I practice what I preach. Anything that I am teaching you guys all this week, and even the fast track options of working deeper with me, whether it's DIY or done with you, I'm in there with everyone. Like I'm doing it. I send connections, I send messages. I'm doing the do. I would say the second thing that really makes me different is I'm always a student. So I never put myself on that pedestal where I feel like, oh my God, I know it all. I don't need to do anymore. I literally, if you were downstairs, in my office/gym, every morning when I'm working out, I have some sort of podcast that I'm listening to about updates to social media, namely LinkedIn. Some of them I already know because I'm on there every day, but I need to be that vessel of information for all of you to let you know what is working, what's not working, and how to best leverage it. So the teacher is also always the student. And I'm always going to be a student because something that I live by is when you think you know everything, you know nothing. And there are so many coaches out there, and I'm sure you guys can resonate with this, that you see these people that self promote themselves to this pedestal where they're all knowing. And again, if you and this is also a belief of mine, not to go too off tangent, but and I want you guys to like really sit with this, and I want you to understand that the peak of one mountain is the valley of the next. The peak of one mountain is the valley of the next. And that's the big thing. So understand there's always going to be room to grow. And I think that's what I love about not just myself, but each and every one of you, because success knows no age. You can, and you've heard all the success stories of like Sheryl Crow and all these people that had success in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s. It's possible for all of us because action leads to results. And I think all of you are seeing just with the minute things, just imagine, just picture for a second with these minute things that we've put into place this week. Just imagine what lies ahead. And there's always deeper things to learn and there's deeper things to know about. So I just want to hear from you guys first and just to understand how you guys learn. So I want you to type 2 things in the chat. If you feel that you're a better learner in the DIY, meaning a done for you kind of pre-built course where you kind of plug and play and you get it and go, are you more of a DIY person or are you more of a done with you person? Meaning you want me to kind of get your hands on what you're doing. You want to refine things. You want me to look at your profile, your messaging, all that stuff. Are you more of a done with you and done for you or a DIY type of person? So DIY, do it yourself, or done for you, done with you. Some people say both, done with me, done with you. Yep. So for me, it depends what it is, but what fills my cup more than anything is just being able to work deeper with people, because I love when I see the light bulbs go off, and I love hearing wins and victories, and even sharing wins from this workshop. Like a couple of you posted in the homework thread, like, I sent my 14 to 18 connections and I already have people that accepted. Can't wait for the next step. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. So how many of you, just Y or a yes? Y or yes? How many of you feel that you're getting a better understanding of the foundational baseline of LinkedIn? Awesome. Now, I know a lot of you sent out your connections. Type in number one in the chat if you ended up accruing or gaining any new accepted connections from that. Drop a number one in the chat. Awesome. Okay. So if, and again, if you haven't yet, that's okay. I mean, there's some days where there's going to be high acceptances. There's going to be days where it's low acceptances. So just know that I gave you guys that average yesterday. Remember, per 100, expect 25 to 35 new connections, which means new lead possibilities. Now, the other thing I wanted to acknowledge, again, two things. Number one, if anybody does want to grab a spot on my calendar, you can do so by grabbing the link in the chat. And again, we can talk about, other paths and other ways of how I can take things to the next level, depending upon what is best and how you work and the results that you want. The other thing, don't forget that Friday is, remember, our half and half hybrid day where we're going to be doing some training and some Q&A. And Billy just took the words right out of my mouth. We're going to do some Q&A. So if you guys click on that link, you don't have to fill it out now. You can just open it up. It's a form that you can fill out. And a few of you have already done that. So thank you for filling it out already. Any questions that you have, just pre-submit them there. And I do kind of like round robin Q&A on Friday as well. The other thing I want to acknowledge is our COO, Christy, who is here. She's the one that's kind of like communicating in the chat. And let's just all, like, if you could just for a second, just say thank you to Christy, because she's the one that's been, sending out the workbooks, and she's dropping the links, and she's making sure that, again, it takes a team, right? To really get this thing going. And I could not do it by myself. If I was having to copy and paste all that stuff, I'd be literally, my head would be spinning. So it's really given me the ability to be very present and here for all of you. And obviously it couldn't have been done without Christy. So I just wanted to say, I know I said thank you to you earlier, but I'm going to say thank you to you again. And I know all of you guys appreciate it. So as a reminder, you'll still be getting the replay email tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. with also the reminders. And don't forget, you still can have people sign up for the workshop. The replays are available. So Christy's going to drop the workshop link in the chat. And again, the replay page you can find in the Facebook group. So if you have not yet joined the Facebook group, make sure you do that. That's where I pull some of the homework winners. You can send that link for people to sign up for the workshop. And if you have not yet taken your assessment, 200 of you have taken the assessment. And I just got to applaud each and every one of you. Pat yourselves on the back for taking that time out to do that, because it shows you where the holes and gaps are. And, we talked about, it's something called an aptitude test. And the aptitude test basically is like, where are my holes and gaps and what do I need to focus on? And a lot of those holes and gaps have already been pre-filled with what we've been doing here. So I hope you guys feel more educated and more inspired about the possibilities of LinkedIn. So today we're going to be talking about booking sales calls and messaging. So I know I said this earlier, but I want to kind of go back to it. How many of you, and I'm assuming it's going to be all 105 of you, it should be, but I'm not going to pre-assume. So drop a Y or a yes in the chat if you have ever gotten one of those 18-paragraph long Drunkalog verbal vomit sales pitch messages from someone that is trying to pitch and sell you something you don't even know them. Yeah. And I said this, I think, earlier in the week, it's gross, right? We don't want to. So when we talk about messaging, Nancy and I always talk about something called the smell test. If you guys are familiar with the smell test, drop a Y. If you're not, drop an N or a no. If you know, okay, so I'm seeing some yeses, some no's. Okay, so here's the smell test. The smell test is this. If the message that you're about to send stinks, don't send it. That's the smell test. Now, in addition to that, so this is I always like turning the mirror around. Remember, we talked about the passenger side perspective. We talked about that on day one and day two, like really kind of putting ourselves in the seat of our ideal client and our, power partners. The same thing goes for messaging. Rule of thumb. Rule of thumb is this. Message people the way that you would want to be messaged. Just think about that and just write that down. Message people the way that I would want to be messaged. So just think about that. If you were to receive one of those garbage pail messages from people, right? You're like, A, I'm not going to respond to that. And B, man, I would never send something like that. So when it comes to messaging on LinkedIn, you know, each person, and this is the honest to God truth, every single one of you is going to be sending a different iteration of a type of message because it really depends on your network, the types of connections that you have, the industry, the professional title. But just make sure when you are crafting this message, right, that it feels good to send, where it's like, man, if that was sent to me, 100% I would respond to that. So rule of thumb is this. When we're sending messages, you're not everyone is going to respond. So I like to, you guys know I like KPIs, I like numbers. So we talk about a 33.3% response rate because again, people can either say yes, no, or nothing at all. So we're going to kind of dive deeper into all of that. So if you guys feel, so like just like we did on day 1 and day 2, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I got my messaging nailed down. I'm booking calls left and right. 0, non-existent. Where would you guys rate yourselves on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as the aptitude of getting high quality responses and booking high qualified sales calls each and every week? Okay, so I'm seeing some numbers kind of all over the place, but that's okay because there's always room for improvement. And if you guys think that I'm not refining what I'm doing, I 100% am. Now, again, we are not selling and pitching anything. I just want to kind of clarify that. You are never selling and pitching in the DMs, especially on LinkedIn. You are looking to build human connection. You're looking to bridge that gap between the person that does and does not know you. So if you guys are ready to dive into day number 3, just drop a Y or a yes in the chat. Awesome. All right, let me get my hide the video panel. I like talking to you guys through what I'm doing. I'm going to hit present. Okay. As always, if you could, please drop a Y or a yes if you can see my screen clearly. I just want to make sure before we dive in. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. All right. Now, again, just a reminder, make sure if you haven't yet joined the private Facebook group, Christy's going to drop that link in the chat right now. Just click on it. Again, you don't have to do anything with it now. Wait till we're done, and then you can kind of, fill out the information to join. Also, remember, there's going to be 4 emails sent out every single day. Replay link at 7 a.m., but it's also in the Facebook group. 1-hour warning, 15-minute warning, and we are live. Do not unsubscribe. Do not report as spam. That cuts off all of our communication, so you'll not know about anything else that's going on or things that are changing. And also, do not forget, again, the replays are available until this coming Monday, June 17th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, remember, there's going to be another accountability post at the top of the Facebook group. It's going to say Scott's Day 3 homework, and this is what you need to do. So remember, if you are in the Facebook group, please submit your homework there 30 minutes prior to the next day's training, which is tomorrow at 12:30. Or if you're not on Facebook, which is completely fine, I'm not going to make you open up an account just to join the Facebook group, then just email my support and my support team will get it, support@scottaaron.net. Now, if everybody's clear on that, just drop a Y or a yes in the chat. Just want to make sure. All right, day 3, how to message, book calls, and close some sales. So we have a little checklist here. And remember, when we talked about the whole fast track of DIY or done with you, done for you, the 21-day turnaround, sometimes even less, that's what you kind of can expect, right? So again, there is a process that needs to be put in place. And again, I go back, I think I shared this with you guys. Remember what I said about T. Harv Eker? He wrote the Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Every master was once a disaster. So in the very beginning, it's going to take some finessing when you're messaging people. It's going to take some finessing when you're getting on calls with people, right? But again, the more that you do it, the better you get at it. So when you message someone, always start with their name first, the reason why you've reached out second without pitching or selling, and always finish with either a call to action or when to talk, or just simply let the person know that you're available to connect offline if they are open to it. Your messages to your connections need to feel authentic and something that you yourself would respond to. We spoke about this a few minutes ago. The way that people respond or may not be responding to your messages could be a clue as to whether they are a good fit for your business, service, or your overall network. Now, also, guys, I can't see my screen. So if you do happen to be unmuted, please mute yourself. We can't have any background noise. So if you see that your microphone is not off, just please mute yourselves just so we have some clear lines. Thank you, guys. You don't need to or want to connect with everyone. This is key. I want you guys to sit in with that. Quality over quantity. So, I have clients reach out to me all the time, whether they're in my, do-it-yourself course or whether I'm working with them, in okay, there we go. Whether someone's going through the DIY course or working with me closely, the fact is I'm really big that you need to and want to connect with the right people, right? Drop a Y or a yes if you've ever gotten on a call with someone that you intuitively in your heart, you're like, you know what? There's not going to be a connection point there. I really shouldn't be on this call, but I don't want to be rude. Okay. Me too. Me too. So I just want you to be heard. I've been there. And I'm going to ask you a little trivia question. What's the most valuable commodity we have? If you know the answer, type it in the chat. What's the most valuable? Yes, Joy. Yes. Our time. 100% the most valuable commodity we have to give is our own time, because there is no value. It's invaluable. So just make sure that you are giving the right time to the right people and vice versa. So if that's clear and if that makes sense, drop a Y or a yes in the chat. Now, in some cases, sometimes it's okay not to have a call to action. So here's the thing. Everyone feels like that every message that they send has to go somewhere. It has to lead somewhere, right? Well, I have to have a call to action because, I have to book that call. Listen, I think we can all acknowledge that there's two types of people in the world. There are active networkers and there are passive networkers. So if you guys can resonate with that, drop a number 1 in the chat. Active networkers, passive networkers. And let me clarify. An active networker is someone like me and a lot of you. You want to build relationships. You want to talk to people. If someone messages you, you're like, yeah, let's hop on a call. Let's do a Zoom. Let's get to know each other, right? Now, the passive networkers are the ones that I don't want to say are skeptical, but they've maybe been oversold to or overpitched to, or in the worst case scenario, and this has happened to me, they've been bait and switched. So how many of you have been bait and switched? Or if you're not sure what that is, just type I don't know, or just put a question mark, because I'll explain to you what it is. So here's the bait and switch. Someone harmlessly, it's going to start to bubble to the surface as I start to explain this. Someone harmlessly messages you on LinkedIn. Seems genuine, seems authentic. Oh, this person just wants to get to know me. And you're like, yeah, let's hop on a call. Let's hop on a Zoom. You get on that call, and guess what happens? They start to sell and pitch you immediately. They bait you in thinking, oh, pitch slap. That's right. They bait you in thinking, oh, they want to connect, but then they literally switch it up and they sell and pitch you. So that's why you have a lot of these passive networkers, because they've been pitch slapped way too many times. And the fact of the matter is that that's why sometimes if you guys don't want to send a call to action, maybe you just want to end your message with more of like nurturing, like, reach out if you ever want to talk. That's completely okay. So not every message that you are going to send is going to have to require a call to action. So if that's clear and if that makes sense, drop a Y or a yes in the chat. Now, the other thing is, I want to go back to what Nancy always reminds people, and I want you guys to write this down. Sales is a contact sport. And Christy, you can type that in the chat too, so they can see it. Sales is a contact sport. Meaning, you have to contact people to create sales. I can't tell you how many times people say to me, oh my God, this person actually wants to talk. Like, oh, Scott, your messaging works. So, just to kind of like lift up the kimono, I create custom message templates for people's specific industries. So messages that you send, obviously there's a basic outline, but I help people craft a message that's honed in on their specific client avatar, industry, profession, job title. And people are always like, oh my God, what do I do now? Well, to create a sale, you got to contact people. You got to build the relationship. So as long as you can lean into that, lean into the uncomfortable, like, okay, sales is a contact sport. I am not going to be afraid to message people anymore. Now, the other thing is that I want you guys to acknowledge, and I want you guys to affirm this in the chat right now. Don't affirm it to me or Christy or Nancy. Affirm it to yourselves. And what I want you to type in the chat right now is, fear is my friend. Fear is my friend. And here is why. Here is why. Being afraid and fearful of something is a beautiful thing. You want those butterflies in your stomach. You want to feel like you're being pushed to another level. Because on the other side of fear is growth, is abundance, are those sales that you want to close. So just know, if you're feeling that little ick in your belly, or you're feeling a little overwhelmed, or if you're feeling a little scared and nervous, that's a beautiful thing. Acknowledge that. Like, really love on that aspect of what you're doing, because you know what it proves to me, and it proves to yourself, that you want to grow. You want to change. You want to be better. You don't want to be stagnant. You don't want to be in the same place that you are right now. So if that makes sense, just drop a Y or a yes in the chat. Awesome. Just want to make sure you guys are with me. Now, when you are crafting a message, you want to follow this strategy right here. You want to state the person's name in a very relaxed fashion. Like, hey, Christy, it's great to be connections, or it's great to be connected to you. You don't want to be like, dear Christy, comma, space, in that next paragraph, how's business treating you these days? So here's why. So people ask me all the time. If you guys are not familiar with the user agreement on LinkedIn, there are a multitude of things that we cannot do. The two biggest things that we cannot do is having someone sign in to pretend that they are us and kind of do the work for us. Because if LinkedIn sees, even if you have a VPN blocker, I mean, a VPN blocker is nothing compared to the technology that LinkedIn has. They will see right through that, and they will delete your accounts. That's number one. Number two, you can't have any automated software that connects and messages for you. Now, I want to share an example with you, and I want you guys just to type a Y or a yes if this has ever happened to you. How many of you have ever been sent a connection request without a note? Okay, so I just want you to just hear me out. Someone sends you a connection request without a note. So there's no note attached. Okay, good. And you're looking at the person's headline and then you're like, oh, like, depending upon what they do, I see some relatability. And then you click accept. And upon clicking accept, miraculously, you get that 18 paragraph long drunkalog verbal vomit message. This person seems to be the fastest typer in the world. How many of you have ever experienced something like that? Now, I have as well.
What is your problem?
If you're unmuted, if you could please mute yourselves. Let me just make sure. I know that someone might have let me just hit mute all. Okay, I got it. And let me just make sure I am not muted. I'm not muted. Good. Okay. So that's happened to me. So what that means, and again, this was alluded to in the chat. GC actually said this. That is a clear sign of automation, which goes against the user agreement. And this is why we talked about on Friday, we're going to be going over my 20-minute a day method. I did a training for a company that I'm working with right now. I'm working with the business owner and their team in the hands-on approach that I kind of described earlier. And we got off our call where we were going over the custom messages and the custom connecting. And the owner of the company is like, man, like that only took me like 6 minutes. This doesn't take much time at all. And I said, I know. You got to work smarter and not harder. That's the whole point. So if you guys can resonate with that, just drop a Y or a yes in the chat. So again, you're stating the person's name in a relaxed fashion. Now, the second part of your message is the reason for reaching out without pitching or selling. So just like I stated to you guys before, this is, I can't express to all of you how important it is to lean into the relationship building of this connection versus chasing a sale. The money shows up when the impact is felt. The money shows up when the impact is felt. And what I can share with you more than anything, and I know all of you appreciate this, and I just want you to drop a Y or a yes in the chat. How many of you appreciate when someone reaches out to you in a genuine fashion and they just want to get to know you? And there's no pitch attached. There's no specific outcome. Yeah, I mean, and Jane just said that's gold. The money shows up when the impact is felt. And that's the truth. You always want to look to leave people better, right? So one of my number one goals for each and every one of you is to turn every single one of you into a person of value. Why? The people that position themselves as a person of value will never run out of opportunities to grow their business because you're never having to chase the money. The money ends up coming to you because you're showing up the right way. You're wanting to, and Rebecca just said it, being a servant leader. That's what it's all about. And when you reach out to someone in a very, very relaxed manner, and here's the other thing that I want all of you, and I want you guys to type this in the chat. And the idea of this is, and I want you to type, I will not become addicted to the outcome. So I want you to type that in the chat. I will not become addicted to the outcome. This is important, especially in sales. Now, many of you may feel like, well, Scott, I'm not in sales. Yeah, listen, if you have something to offer, you're in sales. It doesn't matter if it's a product, an opportunity, a coaching program, a group coaching program, a membership, service. If you have something to offer, you are in sales. And why I want you to lean into I will not become addicted to the outcome is if you go into this process expecting every single person to respond to your message and every single person wanting to get on a call and every single person saying yes, you're just going to set yourself up for failure. Have you guys ever heard of the golden apple rule? Why or yes and or no? The golden apple rule. So I'm seeing some no's. Okay. So the golden apple rule. So how many of you ever bobbed for apples as kids at the Halloween parties? How many of you ever bobbed for, yeah, a lot of fun. So it's a play on that in the sense that, you know, when you're in that, no matter whether you're early stage, pre-launch, established, looking to grow and scale, no matter what stage of your business you're in, you're always sorting through the apples, right? You're always sorting through the apples. Some look really good. Some are bruised. Some have the wormholes, so we know we can't eat it. But then there's that golden apple, right? There's that person, that connection, that it's just irrefutable evidence that this is the person that not only I need to be connected to, but could really benefit from being close to me in my network. So if that makes sense, drop a Y or a yes in the chat. So you have to understand that everything that we're doing is like that big bucket of apples, right? You start with all of those search results, right? And it can be overwhelming. You do the searches, they say, oh my, like LinkedIn will say, yeah, you got 180,000 possible connections. And then you start to filter down, right? You start sending the 14 to 18, right? And then you filter down even more. You have, 30% of those people accepting. And then you filter down even more of the people that accepted a certain amount will, respond to your message and so on and so on. So just understand everything that we're doing is funneling down to get to that golden apple or golden apples, right? So if that's clear and if that makes sense, just drop a Y or a yes in the chat. Awesome. So again, like, hey, Christy, it's so great to be connected to you. And it could be something as simple as this, right? Like, again, I'm just going to give you kind of like an example. This is not like you need to kind of sit with this and you have to kind of like massage the messaging. But say that the connection point between myself and Christy we're both business coaches, but maybe I do something in business that she doesn't and vice versa, right? Maybe she's executive coaching and I do like I don't know, like scaling coaching, like teaching people how to scale their business, just as an example. So I would use that as my anchor, right? I would use that as my connection point. So I would say, hey, Christy, it's so great to be connected to you. I noticed that we were both business coaches, would love to hear about your business, share more about mine, and how we can support each other here on LinkedIn. Now, I know that sounds that's like a very simplistic version of what people should be doing, but I didn't want to kind of go in the overwhelming arena of what needs to be said. But if that's clear and if that makes sense so far, just drop a Y or a yes in the chat. You're looking, I call it bridging the gap. So I'm in New Jersey, and in New Jersey, it's like the entire state is like one big drawbridge. So if you guys are familiar with the drawbridge, right? When the boats are looking to go, what happens? The drawbridge comes up, boats are gone, bridge comes down. When you are messaging someone on LinkedIn, I like to create visuals for you guys. So just imagine every person that you're connecting with and sending a message to, their drawbridge is up. Their drawbridge is up. So you need to do whatever you can in the body of that message to lower the drawbridge, where the person's reading the message and they're going to be like, oh, that makes sense. That's really clear why this person wants to reach out. Then you finish with a call to action. And so many of you have heard this saying, but I'm going to say it again. I posted it actually this morning on Facebook. You have to ASK to GET. You have to ask in order to get. So if you want someone to book a call and hop on a Zoom and get to know one another, you have to ask them. So questions lead to answers. Statements lead to nowhere. So you may want to write that down. Questions lead to answers. Statements lead to nowhere. So if I was to say, Christy, just let me know when's good for you. Well, guess what? She's never going to let me know because I didn't ask. Right? But if I simply said, is there a day this week or next week that works best for you? Now she's going to respond back and say, yeah, next Tuesday's great. Now, I put an asterisk right there because I said, remember, in some cases, a call to action is not needed. So say I'm at my limit for calls booked. So for me, don't worry about a Calendly link right now. I'm not going to get that deep into things. I don't want people feeling all crazy with that. So I just want to kind of go over the structure of the messaging. So if everybody is clear on that, just drop a Y or a yes in the chat. I just want to get the foundations in place. Because again, I want to keep you guys out of overwhelm and into action. Okay. Now, what I'll say to you is that there are some cases where you're not going to need a call to action. So the people that I work with, whether it's DIY style or done with you, my clients book anywhere between 5 to 10 calls a week. So when I'm at that point in my calendar, that's when I kind of start to either book for the next week or I just nurture. So what does a nurture message look like? Well, the first two parts are the same. It's just the call to action is more to nurture. Instead of saying something like, is there a day and time that's best for you to hop on a call or something like that? I can just basically say, if you ever want to connect and see how we can support each other, just reach out. I'm always open to a conversation. So that's just an example, but that's an example of just like nurturing the person without expecting them to respond back. Because at that point, you've kind of taken it away. You're not expecting them to respond, except if they're like, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, would love to talk. So it's more of like a passive call to action. So that would be instead of the CTA. So you can kind of, you can split test this. You can ask for the direct CTA, or you can just kind of nurture them. So if everybody is clear, just type the word clear in the chat. I just want to make sure. Because again, I know messaging can become, kind of like that challenging thing, but I just want to make this very easy for you guys. Stating their name, reason for reaching out without pitching or selling, and then a closing. It could be a call to action, or, it could be no call to action whatsoever. Now, when I would say this is going to be the thing that you guys need to kind of work through yourselves is the sales call. Because I don't want you to focus necessarily on the sales call yet. I want you guys to focus just getting the messages out there, because we can't talk about the sales call until you actually are messaging people. So if you guys are committed to sending messages today, drop a Y or a yes in the chat. Good. Remember, we want to move from overwhelm into action, right? We're just adding one small layer at a time. We're building out those foundations, right? So when you get someone on the phone, and this is just rule of thumb, these are just some helpful sales tips for all of you. Always let that person share their story first. 2 reasons why. Number one, people love talking about themselves. And number two, people love being listened to, right? So just let them talk first. So everything that you are looking to do when you're talking to someone or you're a Zoom or a phone call, you're looking to lower the wall of resistance, raise the level of connection. Lower the resistance, raise the connection. So if that's clear and if that makes sense, drop a Y or a yes in the chat. Good. Now, just remember the person who is asking the questions controls the conversation. So, my wife and I, we have a family farm in South Jersey. Soy, hay, beef cattle. It's been family farm years and years and years. So I like using this analogy where you're looking to steer and create a herding type experience when you're on the call with someone, right? You don't want to just kind of let everybody just roam all around. So like you don't want the conversation in multiple directions. So why you want to ask specific questions and steer the conversation is because you want to be very direct with the person. You want to be very streamlined with how everything is going to be built out. So if that's clear and if that makes sense, drop a Y or a yes in the chat. When you are talking to the person, right, steer the conversation and really control the questions. Now, when you are closing out, yeah, have a plan, right? And this is gonna take some finessing. This is not gonna happen overnight. I would say the other thing I did, so that example I gave you about that business owner with her team that I was working with, I did kind of like an example call that was specific to their business because every call is different. They were like, "Can you sell for us?" I'm like, I've been in sales for 25 years, so it's very easy for me. I have a whole formula that I teach people about how to create all of this. But at the end of the day, you want to end your call with a yes or a yes answer. So why? Well, you want to be able to create either an acquired client path where they're like, yes, I want what it is that you have to offer. Or at a bare minimum, you can gain a business ally. So let me give you an example. So like at the end of the conversation, I can say, hey, Christy, with everything that we spoke about, with what I do, could it serve you and your business better and take you to the next level? Or at a bare minimum, how do you feel we should support each other here on LinkedIn? So what I've done there is I've given people this path to go down where they're like, yeah, Scott, I want to learn how I can work with you. Tell me about what you have. Like, I'm ready to up level. Like, I don't want to be right here. I don't want to have to figure this thing out. I want the tools. I want the keys, right? I want the systems to have in place where I can focus on what I need to focus on, but I don't have to figure it out. Or they can say, you know what? I'm good, but I would like to learn how we can support each other's businesses. So if that's clear and if that makes sense, drop a Y or a yes in the chat. Okay, good. Now, so just a couple extra tips before we start to round out day number 3. Again, make sure that you make it about them and pay attention to that person's story. It's so important for you to find what I call anchors. Anchors are connection points between that person's story and your story to create more relatability. So just remember to listen for anchors. So if that's clear, just drop a number 1 in the chat. Just want to make sure you guys are with me. Listen for anchors. When you listen to those anchors, write down a few key points of how you can work them into your story. So once you have the anchors, build a story around that. Build a story around the anchor. So if that makes sense, drop a number 2 in the chat. Good. And always remember this. Active listening makes for a deeper and more impactful conversation. 100%. Now, so when we talk about, and this is in your workbook, when we talk about the flow of your call, and again, this is different for each person. I've done examples for coaches, for consultants, for podcasters, for speakers that are looking to get speaking engagements, service professionals. So I have a custom template conversation for each person, but this is kind of like the basic outline, right? Well, anchors, Vanessa, are what that person shares. So it's just common points of interest between you and the other person. That's what an anchor is. So again, just remember their story first. So you want to write this down. I mean, I know it's in your notebook, but their story first. Let them share their story. Second, anchor your story to theirs to create more relatability. Then the passion behind what you do. So what I want you guys to remember is this: people do not care about what you do. They care about why you do it. They don't care about the what, they care about the why. So remember, they don't care about the what, they care about the why. So if that makes sense, drop a Y or a yes in the chat. They don't care about the what, they care about the why. Okay. Then your aha moment. So I call this like the light bulb moment, the catalytic moment, the aha moment, that moment where you're like, yes, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. People love hearing that. They love hearing that, almost like that, the volcanic eruption moment where you're like, boom, like this is my path. I am on it. I'm not leaving it. And this is the footprint that I'm going to leave behind for other people. And then you're ending with that yes or yes, whether it's going to be a follow-up for talking about how you can serve them, or it's going to be more of that power partner. How can we support each other's businesses? So if that's clear so far, drop a Y or a yes in the chat. Good. So here's your next step. Your next step, your accountability assignment for today is to send your first new message connections. So let me just ask you guys, how many of you have at least one person to message? Drop a Y or a yes. How many of you have at least 2 people to message? Drop a Y or a yes. 3? Y or yes? 4? Okay. That's awesome. So here's the deal. I don't want you to message more than 5 people, but I want you to send at least 2 to 5 messages today. 2 to 5 messages. Following that structure, right? State their name in a relaxed fashion. Create that connection point. State the relatability between you and that person, and finish with the call to action. Name in a relaxed fashion. Reason for reaching out. Call to action. If you guys feel you can do that and you are ready, type I am ready in the chat. This is how you book more sales. So if you're ready to grow your business and you want to book more sales into your business, you got to reach out. So your accountability assignment for today is to send your first batch of connections messages. So that could be 2 messages. Do not send more than 5 messages. Okay? Stop at 5. And then you can send another batch tomorrow. Because remember, sending your 14 to 18 connections and then sending your messages. So remember, there's going to be a homework thread pinned to the top of the Facebook group. It's going to say Scott's day 3 homework thread. Type in the comments below. I've sent my first new connection messages. And you guys are going to be shocked. Shocked. Some of you that start taking action, you're going to start getting people to respond back that they're ready to talk, which is exciting because then you just have to follow that little outline that I gave you, their story, your passion, your aha moment. Where are we taking it from here? So if you guys are clear on that, drop a Y or a yes in the chat. So remember, you're looking to reach out to form a meaningful connection with a potential client or power partner. Now, before I get to the 2 winners from day number 2, there'll be 2 more winners announced tomorrow. Just to give you a little bit of a sneak peek for tomorrow, we are going to be talking about LinkedIn content tomorrow. This is one of the big things that a lot of people struggle with is, all right, I understand the connecting and the messaging, but what do I post on LinkedIn? How should I be doing that? So I'm going to give you the baseline infrastructure of what you should be posting on LinkedIn, and we're actually going to do a post together. And again, how many of you, why or yes, how many of you struggle with content on LinkedIn and you wish you were more consistent? Okay. So the idea, you're going to be consistent tomorrow. I'm going to break it down in very simple terms. Now, I'm going to be going also into deeper context about, I would say, what I'm calling choose your path of next steps with me. But again, Christy's going to drop in the chat if anybody would like to talk about fast tracking this whole thing, whether they feel like they work better DIY or they want to work directly with me, they want done for them and done with them. I opened up my calendar. Do grab a link and find a time on my calendar. I'd love to talk to you and kind of see more about your business and where the holes and gaps are. Because again, I want to give you guys the infrastructure, but there is more. And as easy as this has been for some of you, it gets easier. And even if this feels overwhelming, it gets easier because when you have the right systems in place, it becomes less overwhelming. Now, just also remember, you can also join the Facebook group if you haven't done that yet. But also importantly, make sure if you do have any questions to use the link that Christy is going to drop in the chat to pre-submit any questions for Friday's hybrid session. So if everybody is clear, drop a Y or a yes in the chat. Just want to make sure before we pop off today. Awesome. You guys did great today. The messaging, that can become one of the most frustrating parts because you get in your head. Get out of your head, get into your heart. Just take action. That's really all you have to do. Just message a few people just to kind of get yourself into the motion. But don't forget, done is better than perfect. I love that, Christy. Don't forget, pop into the Facebook group in the homework thread, pinned to the top, and just make sure that you write, I sent my first new connection messages. So you qualify for the 2 homework prizes for tomorrow. 2 winners from day 2, Lee French and Katie Mott. Congratulations to the 2 of you. All prizes will be given out next week via email. So you don't have to ask. I have everything noted down. You'll be getting them via email. So again, congrats to everyone that showed up today. Remember, you can still invite people to join the rest of the workshop because we still have content to go over tomorrow. We still have the 20-minute routine and some Q&A on Friday, plus the replays until next Monday. So again, we have plenty of things to go through. So don't be afraid. Send out that link that Christy just dropped in there to anyone that you feel could benefit from this. And again, if you're struggling with content, you will not be struggling by the end of tomorrow's session. So love